Well, they moved on really quickly with the heartbreak with Nanako in Remake Our Life, but this is my thoughts on the sixth episode, so let's jump into it. So yeah, in this episode, it looks like we are going straight into Shirayuki's story. It seems like he is the focal point that's going to be for the next couple episodes at least, and I'm kind of fine with this. I think it kind of helps to follow up what just happened in the previous episode with what I assume is going to be the fallback for Nanako. I truly think that's what they're going to end up doing with this particular story. I think they're going to drag it out a little bit longer. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where I respect the fact that it feels like it's handling this differently. Like, typically with a love triangle story, you often have where, one choice is made, and then suddenly out of nowhere, the other choice is just in the background or constantly there going, you broke my heart. I'm so sad. I'm so sad. Or they're trying to figure out, why are you so sad? Why are you so sad? And then it finally comes out, well, I liked you and now you chose this other person, and there's a little heartbreak happening there. But it really does seem like it's actually choosing to instead just have Nanako step aside. And it's sad still, but at the same time, it's not a focal point of, oh, let's really drive it home for the viewer that this girl got her heart broken. No, she's kind of, again, this is kind of the element of it being a more mature story with mature characters, not fully mature, but pretty much there. She's like, I lost, move on, kind of thing. Obviously it opens up with Akishino wanting another kiss from him and Nanako walking in, but it's like, she's a little upset, but she just walks away. It has established at this point that everybody kind of knows, and she's moving on, which I think is very, very different and very refreshing at the same time. It doesn't have to fall in the usual tropes of, well, let's spend an episode with her upset and them trying to find out why she's upset, and then her having to reveal that, oh, she's liked him all along. So, very interesting. It seems like it's already kind of like within, obviously, 5 episodes, Koya and Akishino are in a relationship. That's it. It's done. It's over. They're in a relationship now, and Nanako's gonna have to move on. So yeah, very interesting there. But like I said, I think the good thing is that despite Nanako maybe not seeing it quite yet, Shirayuki's always been there for her, despite Koya. And I think especially since we've pretty much ended this episode with a fiance showing up for Shirayuki, this is that point in which Nanako is going to have to either realize that she does like Shirayuki or pretty much possibly lose him. And I think this relationship is going to be the spark. Either Koya or either Shirayuki is going to have to confess that, look, I've liked Nanako. I like Nanako. They even have several points in this episode. They show them still teasing at each other. They obviously have a thing going on there. And granted, it doesn't have to always have relationships in every single show, but it's going to have to boil down to that eventually. So yeah, I think the fiance showing up is either going to spark Shirayuki to have to go, look, I actually like somebody else. I like Nanako. And then Nanako go, what? Or it turning into a thing where Nanako's like, I actually like Shirayuki and I don't like this girl's all over him. Which I don't think they're technically going... I think it's probably going to be Shirayuki confessing, because I don't think that Nanako really does get it. Nanako doesn't really get the fact that he's supporting her from the background, so... But we'll see where that goes from there. But obviously, like I said, this is a Shirayuki-focused episode. A lot of the focus is on him revealing that they're obviously seeing that he's overworking himself. Finally, Koya gets it out of him, like, what are you doing? Like, he literally collapses, and they have to take him to the hospital before they find out that, yeah, he's kind of overworked. But yeah, he tells him, look, I'm from a family of doctors. They really want me to be a doctor. I left them, and I chose to do my own thing. This is what I chose to do, and now I have to pay my own tuition. So he's working a lot just to pay his own tuition in his schooling. And it's obviously killing him. He's missing... It is the conundrum where he's technically missing school to pay for school. So there's a problem there, obviously. But it seems like they're indicating that he's still technically doing his school work. He's just not at class. So, but yeah, Koya being the problem solver that he has to be in this story... suggests the idea they all work together to make a Dojin game, and they're like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, let's do it. They obviously have all the workings together. Koya knows what he's doing on the side of the directing and putting things together. I'm assuming they're insinuating that Koya knows how to program, so he's going to program the game, or at least use an engine, maybe. But he's going to work as a director. Obviously, Akishino is going to be working as the character artist. This This is kind of one of those. Well, that was a bit of a letdown. Apparently, this Yamashina guy is just some guy he knew from 10 years later that was an artist, and so he's going to use him as a background artist. So obviously, we've established this point. He did not, pass out because he's seen Yamashina's name, because Yamashina, he just goes and meets him. Like, hey, man, can you do my background? He's like, yeah, sure, that's great. So obviously, it wasn't Yamashina that was the trigger to make him fall over. It just seems like that maybe that was just he was overworked. So we can scrap the question mark in my last thumbnail of who is Yamashina? Is he possibly this? That comes to the territory of me going crazy with my theorizing. I love doing it. It's fun. So obviously he was just tired. But yeah, so Yamashina is going to be working as a background artist. They have Akishino working as a character artist. Nanako working on the music composing. She's got to learn some. She got to learn some programs, so that's gonna be fun for her. And then obviously Shirayuki being the writer of the story. So they have their team together. He kind of starts thinking about what kind of game they should make, and he obviously starts to think about trends, and which makes sense. He's thinking about 10 years prior, what kind of trends were we seeing? He sees that he notes that the urban fantasy kind of genre trend is kind of trailing off at this point. So by the time they release it, the idea of an urban fantasy visual novel is not going to do too well. So he chooses what would follow up as the trends, which is a school story. A story is set in a school setting, and that's what they're going to be doing. I just thought it was kind of funny how quickly they accepted his choice. It's like, okay, if right now urban fantasy is the trends. Granted, I don't think anybody in this particular circle is like hot on trends of doujin games, so it's probably a factor of them just accepting what he says. Like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. He doesn't necessarily point out the idea of like, well, the trends are going down or anything like that. He just says, it's probably not going to sell by the time we release it. So he's playing a little off on the trends that he knows, and obviously he points out that he wants to have H scenes in it, which is going to be a little more difficult for them. As Shirayuki kind of points out, I don't really have any experience in that. And he's like, don't worry. Most of the writers of these games don't. So you're not alone. So it's fine. But yeah, the girls run off to try out one of them and obviously come back a little bit flustered. Actually, not really. Nanako comes back flustered. Akishino's like, that was interesting. Okay. She doesn't really care. And that's when they decide to go get... that's when... So Koya actually confronts Keiko to possibly have his game made under her label. So he does come to her for some information, some pointers and stuff, but he knows it's not going to sell very well. I mean, it's their first game. Nobody's going to know who they are. She's like, yeah, you're going to have to get the word out there. But additionally, he does pose a very clever move, and that's the idea of requesting that she allows them to actually have it under her label. That way they have notoriety already on their product. It's like an indie game developer getting a big game developer to put their publishing label on their stuff. It helps them immensely. I mean, Sony has been doing this for a long time with their indie games. So it does make sense, the idea of doing that. And now the interesting thing is that she does say that she has some stipulations that would be required of him. I think he only notes the fact that it has to sell well. Like, you're going to put this under our label, it better sell well. So I don't know that she applies anything else additional besides that. I think she said that there was some stipulations, but that was the only one that he notes. So I'm curious if there'll be anything else. Maybe she requires him to make another game for her. On the side, also, Eiko decides to kind of give him some pointers. He's like, thanks, son. I was almost like he was expecting Eiko to jump forward and ask to help out. So he's like, oh, well, I have this. Can you help me with this? She's still kind of working from the background in this entire story as kind of like that support. I really do love her character. I'm sad that she doesn't really get much of attention in the show itself, but she's always kind of seems to be the background character that's very mature, very much so trying to help in a very stern way. So I really still love Eiko's character. He obviously has a meeting with Sensei, and that's when we find out that Sensei has actually worked with Keiko on projects before, but she's retired from it. So that was interesting, but she does give the approval for them to be able to do the game as long as it doesn't affect their schooling itself. But additionally with Eiko, that she does mention the idea that she's concerned that he's overworking himself. And that's kind of technically been a staple for the last few episodes, or at least the last couple episodes, is how much Koya is kind of overworking himself in order to help others. He is literally just he's being the fixer. He is the fixer of this show. And granted, that's the whole driving force to the romance with this series, but now we're adding Shirayuki into it as well, unless Shirayuki turns into a romance option. That's quite an option there. That could actually happen, but it is focusing a lot attention on the fact that Koya is overworking himself. He overworked himself previously with the festival thing, with helping Nanako with her music stuff, and now here with trying to help Shirayuki with his money problems. So I am really curious at some point they're going to really hit on the idea that he just kind of becomes extremely exhausted. Now, granted, Shirayuki's already kind of beating him on that staple easily. One last interesting thing they kind of hit on is they put a lot of emphasis on showing Shirayuki delete his writing. And I'm curious exactly what that's going to be. I'm guessing they're going to really hit on the idea that he is a perfectionist. Granted, what he wrote, Koya points out, this is too stiff. You need to, put a little more dialogue in here. There's a couple problems in this. He's being very honest with him. Hey, can you fix this? I'm sorry. This needs to be a little bit better. And his response to that is delete it, not to fix it or edit it. And I think that's going to be probably his downfall, is the idea that he's somebody that if he sees faults in something, he just scraps it. Like, this wasn't good enough, start over. And that is obviously very unhealthy, especially when you are dealing with a doujin game that takes a lot of writing. It is scary to think. I mean, anybody watching this, think about a visual novel or something like that, or a book. And you're writing a book and you get done with it and your editor says, yeah, you're going to have to change this and this and this. The flow right in this particular chapter isn't that good. And you take the entire book and you throw it in the garbage and then you start writing a new book. It's insane. That's a lot of writing. That's a lot of time. And with the book, nothing against books and nothing about a flame war between visual novels and books, but the visual novels that I've experienced, they're multiple books. There's a lot of writing in visual novels. And granted, a lot of it's just dialogue, but it is a lot of writing. And if you can think about some of the bigger visual novels, can be literally tens of volumes. And now, granted, I don't think they're making a very big doujin game here. That's probably not going to be that long, but I would assume probably a book's worth of writing that he's made. And for him to scrap it and start over, that's going to be detriment to him. He's obviously not getting sleep. And if he's rewriting the whole thing, he's not going to get much sleep in the coming days. So I'm really curious what they're doing there. If they're really hitting on the idea of him being a perfectionist and him having to really correct that, or if him actually if it's being something else. But maybe he's trying to hide his writing. Maybe he doesn't want anybody touching his writing, and that's why he deletes it. We'll see. But yeah, the episode pretty much, throughout the episode, they kind of note this girl that's running around with this escort, and eventually, she does show up at his doorstep. It is Shirayuki's fiance. She's very, very clingy. Very clingy and forward to pretty much everybody that's in the room, but yeah, that'll be interesting addition to the story. Curious what that will do. If she's going to try to drive him back, or maybe she's the reason why he's there to begin with. Maybe she's the inspiration he needed in order to kind of do what he wanted to do. But I'm curious what they'll end up doing with that. Like I said, my assumption is to be using her as a driving force to get Nanako and Shirayuki together. Outside of that, I don't know. I assume it's just really his past coming back to him. The thing that's going to try to pull him back into just do what your parents want, become a doctor, I'll support you. Or if she's going to be the one that supported him in leaving, going and doing this. I hope it's the latter. I hope it's really, like I said, this story has already kind of shown me that it's willing to do things different. Like I said, Nanako just kind of stepping back and just not having an entire doom and gloom episode of her being upset and them trying to figure out why. Maybe that's another case here. Maybe it can be different in the idea that she just technically supports him, but wants to be there with him. And he's like, no, you're too clingy. I need to do my own thing. He's already expressed that he doesn't like people getting involved with his stuff. That's what he said to Koya. So maybe it is a case where she did support him, but he doesn't want her handing him everything. Like, she could probably pay for his tuition, but he doesn't want that. He wants to do his own thing. How bad would it look to his parents who are like, become a doctor, And he goes, no, I'm going to do my own thing, but my girlfriend's going to pay for it. It doesn't look very good. So maybe that's the case. But she does definitely look cute. So adding more cute girls to the show itself, that's doing a lot more incredible things than just that. But I did get a kick out of the round table with the director. You have Shirayuki come in and he's like, man, I can't do this writing. I don't understand it. I was playing this game to get some ideas, and it seemed like from the get-go, all the girls are all over me. He's like, yeah, that's just how those games go. It really is trying hard to point out the idea that the writing in these games aren't necessarily what you'd find in real life. It's not afraid of kind of pointing out that, which I think it's kind of funny to kind of parallel that with the show itself. Like I mentioned earlier, this whole aspect of, Nanako being upset that Akishino is with Koya, and it just kind of leaving it. Is trying to paint more of an idea. No, this is technically what happened in real life. She would kind of just have to move on. She'd be heartbroken, obviously, but she's not going to be, waddling in a corner forever because she didn't get the guy. Who cares? Move on with your life kind of thing. And now to have this game they're making and then pointing out the fact that, it's not really reality, does kind of point out that whole aspect there. I mean, besides the fact that he went back in time. But yeah, Akishino coming in with some artwork, and he's like, keep to the ideas that we have, keep to the template. Not quite sure what they were pointing out there. Maybe the fact that she was in a bikini and that was kind of throwing him off. I don't know. And then obviously Nanako coming in tired because she can't figure out the music software. So yeah, Koya is going to have a lot of work ahead of him. Doing schooling plus directing is not going to be an easy task. And like I said, I think, they'll probably put a lot of focus on Shirayuki and this fiance in the next episode, but I think they're really going to hit on Kyoya overworking himself, obviously. So that's my thoughts on episode 6 of Remake Our Life. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like down below, comment, let me know what you thought of the episode. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you can, consider supporting us on Patreon. And I thank you all for watching, and y'all take care.